I was sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by unopened bills and the kind of silence that hums when life's gone off course. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Outside the street was gray and still. Then came the pounding. 3 hard knocks, sharp and deliberate. I flinched. Bill collectors usually left notes they didn't announce themselves. When I opened the door, a man in a tailored gray suit stood there holding a briefcase that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His expression was neutral, like he'd rehearsed calm. "Mr. Owen Pierce," he asked. "That depends who's asking." He offered a business card. "Julian West Legal Counsel. May I come in?" People like him don't visit houses like mine, but something in his tone, steady, respectful, made me step aside. He walked into my living room past the worn couch and half-fixed lamp and sat without commenting on the mess. He opened his briefcase, pulled out a folder, and looked me straight in the eye. "Mr. Pierce, I'm here regarding an inheritance." I laughed once. "You got the wrong guy. Nobody in my family owns more than a used pickup." He smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised. The benefactor was Dr. Raymond Cho, a medical researcher in cancer immunotherapy. He passed away 6 months ago. In his will, he left his estate to one specific profile, a survivor who went through treatment alone without family support. You match that description." The words didn't register at first. "I'm sorry, what?" He placed a paper in front of me. "You've been awarded $63 million. The number echoed in my head like an engine misfiring. 63 million. I'd spent the last 5 years driving Uber to pay off chemotherapy debt, and now some stranger was saying I was a millionaire. "Why me?" I asked quietly. Julian flipped open another document. Dr. Cho reviewed patient stories through his research network. Yours stood out. He wrote that anyone who fought cancer with no help deserved a second life. He instructed that the inheritance go to you. I felt my throat tighten. For a long time, I'd believed no one noticed. That my fight had ended the day my wife walked out and my body stopped burning with radiation. 5 years ago, Julian continued, you were treated at Eastfield Oncology, stage 3 lymphoma. You recovered. You were married to Ms. Vanessa Hart at the time, correct? My jaw clenched. Was. She left during treatment. He hesitated. She's involved again, I'm afraid. I looked up. Involved how? He slid a photo across the table, Vanessa perfectly dressed as always, sitting beside a man I didn't recognize. They were in what looked like a law office. That's her and her partner, Trevor Kane, Julian said. He works in pharmaceutical sales. They filed to contest the inheritance, claiming you're mentally unfit to manage the funds. They've also requested a competency hearing. I felt my stomach turn cold. You're saying they're trying to take it from me? Yes. And there's more. Julian unlocked his phone, turned the screen toward me. This went live an hour ago. It was a post from someone named Tessa Vale, a selfie-heavy influencer type. She'd shared a picture of me from 5 years ago, bald, sick, barely human. The caption read, Owen Pierce faked cancer for sympathy and money. Proof coming soon. Cancer fraud exposed. The post already had thousands of shares. My hands started to shake. That's a lie, I know, Julian said calmly. But people believe what's loudest, not what's true. And your wife's friends seem to have influence online. I sank back into my chair. The room seemed smaller now. So I said, trying to steady my voice, I beat cancer, got left for dead, and now they're trying to destroy me again because of money I didn't even ask for. That's the reality, Julian said, but we can fight it. First step, an independent psychological evaluation to confirm your competence. Second, documentation of your treatment and financial records. And third, no contact with Vanessa or her associates. No contact, I repeated, though my mind was already racing ahead, to the last time I'd seen her standing in that same doorway, suitcase in hand, saying you're too expensive to save. I thought I'd buried that memory with the rest of my past. But now it was back alive and bitter. Julian stood. Mr. Pierce, people get cruel when money's involved. But I've seen worse cases turn out fine with the right proof. He gave me his card, promised to call in 48 hours, and left. The silence returned heavier than before. I looked at the folder on the table, the letterhead, the signatures, the impossible number. $63 million. It could erase every bill, every debt. It could even buy back my house from the bank. But first I had to survive another kind of sickness. I made coffee again, though it tasted like metal. I opened a notebook and started writing names: Julian West, Vanessa Hart, Trevor Kane, Tessa Vale. Then I wrote one more word beneath them: truth. Because that was what they were really trying to steal. Not the money, not even my name. The truth of what I'd lived through. By afternoon, my phone buzzed nonstop. Unknown numbers, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some were sympathetic, others weren't. One text read, "Saw the post, you really lied about the cancer." Another, "Guess karma comes for everyone." I turned the phone face down on the table. At sunset, I drove to the only place that still felt real, the Rusted Anchor. The small bar off 3rd Street where I'd once spent Friday nights fixing jukeboxes for extra cash. Inside, it smelled like old beer and varnish. Tom, the bartender, looked up. "You're a little early, Owen." "Bad day," I said. He poured me a draft and nodded toward the corner booth. "Heard your name's been bouncing around online. People got too much free time." I sipped the beer. "You could say that." He leaned closer. "You planning to answer them?" I shook my head. "No, not yet. Let them think I'm quiet. It's better that way." Tom smiled faintly. "You always did fight in silence." I left after one drink. The night air was cool, almost kind. I stood outside under the streetlights staring at my reflection in the bar's window. 5 years ago, I'd looked like a ghost. Tonight, I looked alive but haunted. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table again. I tore a blank page from my notebook and wrote, Rule 1. Don't let them rewrite my story. Rule 2. Collect every receipt. Rule 3. Wait for the right moment to hit back. When I finished, I pinned the paper above my desk. Outside, rain started tapping against the window. I watched it for a long time, thinking about Dr. Cho, the man who believed survival deserved reward. He'd never met me, but somehow he'd seen me. Now it was my turn to prove I deserved it. The fight wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity, about showing the world that I was still the man who refused to die when dying was the easy way out. And when the time came, I'd make sure every person who tried to bury me under lies would see that I hadn't just survived, I'd learned how to fight back. They say revenge starts with silence, that the loudest moment is the one when you finally decide to stop explaining yourself. 2 days after the lawyer's visit, I stopped checking my phone. I didn't need to. The lies were spreading faster than wildfire. Every time I turned on the radio or scrolled the news, I heard my name paired with fraud hoax or fake cancer survivor. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was calculating. Julian had called that morning to confirm my psychiatric evaluation for next week. It's standard, he said. They're trying to make you look unstable. You'll prove the opposite. I hung up and stared at the wall where my notebook hung. Beneath Rule 3, wait for the right moment, I wrote another line. Observe first. That evening I decided to observe. The Rusted Anchor. My local refuge sat glowing under a flickering neon sign. Inside, the air smelled like fried food and old stories. I pushed open the door, and that's when I saw them, Vanessa and Trevor, in the same corner booth we used to sit in. My pulse kicked. Her hair was perfect as always. She wore the same calm smile she'd used when telling me you'll survive somehow. Trevor had the confidence of someone who'd never had to survive anything. I walked to the bar. Tom raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to be here right now? Yeah, I said quietly. I think I do. He nodded toward the corner. They've been here about an hour. Talking about you. I exhaled slowly. That's what I figured. I took a seat with a clear view of their booth. I didn't have to strain to hear them. Trevor had a voice built for sales pitches and gym mirrors. He's clearly unstable, Trevor was saying loud enough for half the room. You see how he lives. You think a guy like that can manage $60 million. 63, Vanessa corrected automatically. And you're right. Owen never was good with money. Always overpaid bills, obsessed with saving receipts. He'll crack under the pressure. I gripped my beer bottle so hard the glass creaked. She was rewriting me from across the room, turning a lifetime of responsibility into a weakness. Trevor leaned closer to her. The chemo excuse is perfect. There's a thing called chemo brain. Makes people forgetful, irrational. If we push that, the court will eat it up. Vanessa laughed softly. And Tessa's post already has 50,000 shares. By tomorrow, everyone will think he faked the whole thing. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I stood, walked across the bar, and slid into the booth across from them. They froze. "Evening," I said. "Funny running into you here." Vanessa blinked, her mask faltering for half a second. Then she straightened. "Owen, we're having a private conversation." I noticed, I said, leaning forward. "You should probably have it somewhere more private than my favorite bar." Trevor shifted in his seat, puffing up his chest. "Hey, buddy, maybe take your beer and go back to your corner." "Buddy," I repeated slowly. "You're Trevor, right? Pharmaceutical sales." He frowned. "Yeah. So, just curious," I said. "How's business lately? I heard some of your company cars have been getting repossessed." Vanessa frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing," I said with a shrug. "Just that the guy you're trusting with your legal strategy can't even keep up with his car payments." Trevor went pale. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I do," I said, sliding my phone onto the table. "You'd be amazed what people talk about in the back seat of an Uber, especially when they think the driver isn't listening." Vanessa's eyes flicked between us. "Oh, and what is this?" "This," I said, tapping my phone screen, "is me protecting myself. I've been recording since I sat down." "You can't do that," Trevor barked. "Actually, in this state, I can. One-party consent," I said calmly. "And right now, that party is me." Vanessa's composure cracked. "You're insane." "No," I said. "I'm thorough. There's a difference." I took a slow sip of beer, letting the silence stretch. "Here's how this is going to go. You're going to withdraw your competency petition, and you're going to tell your friend Tessa to delete that post before she gets hit with a defamation suit she can't afford." Trevor leaned forward, sneering. "Or what?" I smiled. "Or I make both of your lives very, very public? Starting with this recording, then the credit reports, then the bank records. Oh, and Vanessa, your little vacation to Miami 2 months after our divorce, the one you told the IRS was for work, I kept those receipts too." Vanessa's face went completely still. For a second, she looked like the person I'd married, smart, terrified, cornered. Then she whispered, "You wouldn't." "Try me." I stood, left a 10 on the table for my beer, and started toward the door. Behind me, I heard their argument ignite. Trevor's voice rose sharp and defensive. "You told me this was handled." Then Vanessa's colder, quieter. "You idiot, you said he didn't have proof." Their voices followed me out into the parking lot where the rain had started again. It felt cleaner this time. Tom met me at the door. "That looked intense." I shrugged. "Just business." "Be careful," he said. "People like that don't quit when they're embarrassed. They double down." "I'm counting on it," I said. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, emails. I didn't answer any of them until one came from Julian. "Eli, sorry, Owen. It's worse than we thought," he said as soon as I picked up. "The stories spread to 3 local news outlets, and 2 cancer charities are demanding an investigation into your records. They can't access those right." "Legally, no," he said, "but public opinion doesn't care about legality, it's optics. We need to move fast." He told me to gather everything: diagnosis reports, test results, photos, treatment logs. "We'll bury them in evidence. Truth is slow, but it wins if you keep it clean." "Anything on Vanessa and Trevor?" I asked. "Not yet," he said, "but we're digging." When the call ended, I sat in my car for a long time, watching the rain trace crooked lines down the windshield. My anger had burned away, leaving only clarity. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. That afternoon, I started driving again. Not for money this time, for information. People say Uber drivers are invisible. They're wrong. We're mirrors. People talk to fill the silence, and if you listen, the world hands you secrets. By evening, I'd already picked up 2 passengers from Trevor's office building. Both mentioned the salesman with the sports car who's in trouble again. I smiled to myself. Trouble leaves a trail. When I got home, I called Julian back. "I think I found our leverage," I said. He sounded cautious. "Owen, don't do anything illegal." "I won't," I said. "But I am going to do something effective." The wind howled outside. My reflection in the dark window looked unfamiliar. Calm, focused, a man who'd stopped waiting for mercy. "Let them keep pushing," I said quietly. "They've mistaken silence for weakness, but this time silence is strategy." Julian paused, then said, "Just be careful. You've already beaten death once. Don't start another war without knowing the terrain." I hung up and looked back at my notebook on the wall. Under Rule 3, wait for the right moment, I drew a small check mark. Because the moment had just arrived. They called it a competency hearing. It felt more like a circus. Reporters shouted questions as I climbed the courthouse steps beside Julian. Did you fake your diagnosis? Are you stealing from a cancer charity? Cameras flashed. A woman with pink hair yelled, "Justice for real survivors." Julian leaned close. Don't look at them. They want emotion. Give them silence. Inside, the air was too cold to clean. Vanessa sat across the aisle, her posture perfect, her face calm. She'd dressed like grief, had a dress code navy blue, no jewelry, eyes rehearsed. Trevor sat beside her, sweating through his expensive shirt. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The gavel hit once. Case number 2419, the clerk read. Pierce versus Hart. Their lawyer, Brenner, started first. Your Honor, my clients are only concerned about Mr. Pierce's well-being. Chemotherapy, as the court knows, can cause cognitive decline. Combined with erratic online behavior, Julian stood. Objection. He doesn't have social media. Brenner smiled thinly. He will once he's stable enough to manage it. Laughter rippled through the back of the courtroom. I stared straight ahead. They brought in a psychiatrist who had never met me. He talked confidently about chemo brain and post-treatment confusion. Then they showed screenshots of Tessa's viral post. Over 60,000 shares. Commenters calling me a liar, a thief, a disgrace. Then Trevor took the stand. He's dangerous, he said, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. He confronted us in a bar recording everything without consent. Julian murmured, let him talk. Trevor kept going. He said he'd ruin us. He's paranoid, obsessed with revenge. Next came Vanessa. She looked at the judge, not at me. My ex-husband has struggled emotionally since his treatment, she said softly. I don't want his life destroyed by greed. The judge nodded slightly. Thank you, Mrs. Hart. Julian stood. If I may respond, Your Honor. He handed the clerk a folder. Exhibit a complete medical documentation of Mr. Pierce's treatment signed by his oncologist, Dr. Farrow. Dr. Farrow herself took the stand. Mr. Pierce was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma, she said firmly. His treatment was successful. There is no cognitive impairment. Julian projected the pathology report, scans, and signatures. Every piece verified. The accusation of fraud is baseless. Then he took a breath. Exhibit B. He pressed play on his phone. Vanessa's voice filled the courtroom. With Tessa's post going viral, half the town will think he faked it. Trevor's followed. Chemo brain's perfect. Makes him sound confused. The judge leaned forward, frown deepening. Mrs. Hart, she said slowly, is this your voice? Vanessa's lips parted, but no sound came out. The recording is legal, Julian said. One-party consent. My client was that party. Brenner tried to object. The judge raised a hand. Save it! I've heard enough! She turned to Vanessa and Trevor. You attempted to manipulate this court using lies and defamation. I'm dismissing the petition with prejudice, and I'm ordering you to pay all legal fees. Her gavel hit the bench. The sound echoed like a door slamming shut. Julian exhaled slowly. You just won, he whispered. But it didn't feel like victory. Outside, the crowd had thinned, but cameras still waited. Someone shouted, Hey, Pierce, you got anything to say? I turned just long enough for them to catch my face. Yeah, I said. You can't fake survival. Julian smiled faintly as we reached the car. That'll make the evening news. Good, I said. Maybe it's time they heard something true. That night, I sat in my dark living room watching rain streak down the window. The court had cleared my name on paper, but public opinion doesn't use ink. It uses noise. Online Tessa was already claiming the audio was AI-generated. My phone buzzed. A new message, no name attached. You think this is over? People know who you really are. I didn't need to guess who sent it. Vanessa's tone carried through every word. I stared at the screen, then typed back. You're right, it's not over. But next time, you'll be the one under the microscope. Then I blocked the number. Across the room, the folder from Julian sat on the table, the will, the court ruling, and the inheritance documents. All clean. All official. But my instincts told me Vanessa wouldn't walk away quietly. She'd built her life on appearance, and I'd just torn that apart in public. So I opened my notebook again. Beneath the last line, I wrote, Rule 6. The courtroom ends the battle. The real war begins after. I closed it, leaned back, and let the silence settle. The hearing had cleared my name. Now it was time to clear the scoreboard. Winning in court should have felt like peace. It didn't. It felt like the air before a second storm, quiet, heavy waiting. Julian told me to lay low, but I'd lived through chemo. I knew what lay low really meant, the calm before the next attack. So while the world still argued online, I started planning. I wasn't after revenge, not exactly. I just wanted balance. Truth for lies, loss for loss. And I had resources now, money, time, and proof. The first move was Derek's replacement, Trevor Kane. I started with him. People like Trevor leave trails of debt like breadcrumbs. Through a contact, Julian recommended I hired a private investigator, an older guy named Harlan, quiet voice, sharp mind. Within a week, he had a file thick as a phone book. Trevor wasn't the successful pharmaceutical rep he pretended to be. He was drowning. 2 failed marriages, unpaid alimony, a BMW, 3 payments behind, and a company audit coming for him. I stared at the file, flipping through credit reports and past due notices. "Can I buy these debts?" I asked. Harlan smirked. "With your budget, you can buy the whole collection agency." So I did. A month earlier, I'd been worried about paying my electric bill. Now, with a few signatures, I owned the rights to every debt Trevor owed. It felt strange, lawful, quiet power. The next morning, a tow truck rolled up to Trevor's neighborhood and took his car. Not illegally, not even personally. Just business. I watched from across the street as the truck pulled away. He came running out barefoot, shouting, "You can't do this!" The driver pointed to the paperwork. "Company says it's theirs now." I didn't smile. I just drove off. The next piece was Tessa Vale, the influencer whose post had painted me as a liar. She lived online, so that's where I hit her. I hired a digital audit team, not hackers, just professionals who trace fraud. It took them a week to find what I suspected half her followers were fake, her brand sponsorships built on false engagement, and she'd been paid for promoting non-existent products. We compiled everything into a clean report, graphs, timestamps, proof. Then I sent copies to every company she'd ever worked with and to the FTC fraud division. A week later, her Instagram went dark. 2 days after that, her YouTube channel was demonetized. By the end of the month, she was posting tearful apologies about online bullying. I didn't feel bad. She'd bullied me first, she just called it content. That left Vanessa. She was different. I couldn't just expose her. I needed her to understand what she'd done, what it felt like to lose everything you'd built. Harlan found out she worked at a mid-size marketing agency. The owner was an older man planning to retire. I made him an offer double market value for the firm cash. He accepted. Within a week, I was the new owner of Blue Harbor Marketing, Vanessa's company. I didn't fire her. That would have been too easy. Instead, I restructured her position, moved her office from a bright corner room to a cramped desk in the basement storage area, assigned her the kind of tedious reports that drain hours and pride client summaries email, formatting meaningless revisions. At first, she didn't know. When she found out who the new owner was, she froze in the hallway the first time she saw me. Owen. I looked up from my tablet. "Ms. Hart, good to see you finally on time." Her face paled. "You can't, this is harassment." "This is business," I said evenly. "You're an employee of my company now. I expect professionalism." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I leaned back. Also a friendly reminder, personal spending from the marketing budget is a termination offense. I'd hate for that to surface. Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" I slid a folder across the desk, receipts, transfers, expense reports. "Your Miami trip 2 years ago. It wasn't work-related. You billed it under client travel." Her voice dropped. "What do you want?" I didn't smile. Nothing. Just accountability. Show up, do your job. Think about the people you step on when you chase comfort. She stood there shaking, torn between fury and fear. Then she walked out. I should have felt something, satisfaction maybe, but mostly I just felt tired. Weeks passed. Word spread. Trevor filed for bankruptcy. Tessa disappeared from public view. Vanessa stopped wearing heels and started avoiding eye contact. It was all working exactly as planned. Until one night Julian called. "Owen, we need to talk," he said. His voice sounded wary. "I know you've been active. Be careful. This could backfire." "How so?" I asked. "Financial retaliation is still retaliation," he said. "You're walking the line between justice and obsession." I stared at the glass of water on my table. "She tried to erase my life, Julian." "I know." But if you're not careful, you'll let her do it in a different way by turning you into her reflection. The call ended. I sat in the dark for a long time. He was right. But the truth was, revenge wasn't about rage anymore. It was about restoration, rebuilding something they'd broken in me. The next morning, I drove to the old hospital. The cancer wing looked the same, sterile halls, soft voices. I left a check at the front desk for the patient relief fund. No name, no publicity, just a small start. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean again. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Then my phone buzzed a new message from an unknown number. You think you've won, but you've only started a fire you can't control. No name, but I knew the voice behind it. Vanessa. I deleted it. Then I opened my notebook and wrote one last rule. Rule 7. Fires don't scare me anymore. I've already walked through one and survived. Revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. It happens in boardrooms, inboxes, and court filings. It's the kind of storm that looks like calm until it isn't. 3 months had passed since the hearing. Long enough for the noise to fade for people to move on or pretend to, but not for Vanessa, Trevor, or Tessa. The first domino fell on a Wednesday morning. Trevor woke to find a final notice from Carver Holdings, LLC. He owed $230,000. The letter was written in simple, polite language: pay in full or face legal action. I'd written it myself. By Friday, his BMW was gone, his accounts frozen, and his reputation in shambles. He called me that night, his voice shaking. "You can't do this," he said. "I already did," I replied. "Legally. You tried to destroy my life. I just collected the debt you built." He was silent for a long time before whispering, "You're worse than I thought." "No," I said softly. "I'm exactly what you made me." Next came Tessa. The FTC report I'd filed triggered an official investigation. Her brand partners dropped her one by one. Within weeks, her pages were gone, every post, every photo erased like they never existed. When she finally resurfaced, it wasn't with filters or hashtags. It was an apology video, shaky and tearful. She admitted her mistakes, blamed stress, and begged forgiveness. I didn't watch the full clip. I didn't need to. But Vanessa was the endgame. She lasted the longest, holding herself together through sheer denial. She came to work every morning at Blue Harbor Marketing, pretending not to notice how every door closed a little faster when she walked by. One afternoon, I called her into my office. She stood in the doorway, pale, guarded. "Owen, please," she said quietly. "You've made your point." "I'm not sure I have," I said. "Sit down." She did slowly. I slid a folder across the desk. "Do you recognize these?" Her hands trembled as she flipped through copies of financial records, all showing small, unauthorized transfers from the company's marketing budget into her personal account. Her voice cracked. "It was a loan. I was going to pay it back." I nodded. "Tell that to the auditors or the police." She looked up sharply. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said. "But not because of the money. Because you left me to die when you could have helped. And then when life gave me another chance, you tried to take that too." Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't remorseful. They were the kind of tears people shed when they realize control is slipping away. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "You're cornered. That's not the same thing." She stood suddenly, pushing back the chair. "You can't keep punishing me forever." I looked her dead in the eye. "That's where you're wrong. I'm not punishing you anymore. I'm just letting consequences do their work." The following week, the police arrived at her office. She was charged with embezzlement, a small amount, but enough for felony prosecution. When the story hit the local news, the same anchors who once discussed cancer fraud were now reporting financial misconduct by marketing executive Vanessa Hart. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Trevor tried to flee town. Harlan's team tipped off the authorities, and he was arrested at a bus station with forged checks in his bag. Tessa, facing federal charges, cooperated with investigators. In her plea deal, she admitted that Vanessa and Trevor had fed her false information for money. "3 names, 3 falls," Julian called one evening. "It's done," he said. Trevor took a plea 5 years for fraud. Vanessa's trial starts next month, but her lawyer's pushing for a deal. Tessa's on probation under supervision. I nodded, justice served. "Maybe," he said carefully. "But tell me honestly, did it make you feel better?" I looked around my living room, same worn couch, same creaking floorboards, same half-empty coffee mug on the table. Everything looked exactly as it did before the inheritance. No, I admitted, it didn't. You could still turn this into something good, Julian said. Dr. Cho wanted his gift to help survivors. Maybe start there. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked to my kitchen window and stared out at the street that had seen every version of me, the broke mechanic, the patient, the ghost, the survivor, and now, whatever this was. Revenge had rebuilt my confidence, but it hadn't rebuilt my peace. In the morning, I drove back to Eastfield Hospital, the same place I'd once sat for hours watching IV bags drip into my veins. The staff didn't recognize me. I left a check with the administrator, no signature, just a note. For patients who fight alone. As I walked out, I realized something survival had given me money. Revenge had given me justice. But forgiveness, real quiet forgiveness, might finally give me rest. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the estate office. Dr. Cho's attorney had enclosed a short note written years before his death. To whoever receives this, I did not choose you because you were perfect. I chose you because you survived. Do something worthwhile with that survival. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in my notebook right after Rule 7. That night, I turned on the lamp, pulled out a clean page, and wrote, Rule 8. The best revenge is rebuilding something that outlives the pain. I smiled a small, quiet smile, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel forced. The storm was over, and I was still standing. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.